You know, every time I sit down to talk to you all, my amazing Royal Sussex Squad family, I'm reminded of why we do this, why we carve out this space, why we make room to speak truth, to uplift one another, and to stand tall in the face of the noise. Because when it comes to Meghan Markle, our Duchess of Sussex, we are witnessing a woman who continues to live her life with grace, purpose, and clarity. And somehow, despite everything thrown her way, she keeps showing up and moving forward with her head held high. Now listen, I know some people out there would rather pretend she's faded into the background. They'd love nothing more than for her to just disappear quietly. They wanted her silenced, humbled, broken. But Meghan, she's out here evolving, creating and thriving in her own lane. And today we're going to talk about that, about how her new podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, is yet another example of how she's not just surviving post-royal life. She's owning it. So grab your tea, your coffee, your wine or your water, whatever you need to sip and settle in, because we're about to dig into the power of storytelling, the brilliance of women who build from scratch, and why Meghan Markle continues to leave her mark no matter what the press tries to ignore. Meghan's latest episode of Confessions of a Female Founder just dropped, and I have to say, it's one of my favourites so far. In this one, she sits down with Heather Hasson, the founder of Figs, you know, the medical scrubs company that completely disrupted the healthcare apparel industry and turned it into something innovative, ethical and cool. Now, what makes this episode particularly refreshing is that Meghan didn't have a personal connection with Heather going into this conversation. There was no Hollywood link, no previous friendship, just two women, each a founder in their own right, sitting down to talk about vision, growth, and how you learn to lead. And of course, Meghan showed up not just as a host, but as a deeply thoughtful, intuitive conversationalist. She brought her whole self, her intellect, her humour, her experiences, and she wove them into the fabric of the episode in the most beautiful way. One of the standout moments for me was when Meghan reflected on her college days at Northwestern, where she double-majored in theatre and international relations. That alone already sets the record straight for anyone who thinks she wasn't serious, strategic and scholarly from the start. She explained that in her theatre programme, you couldn't just act, no ma'am, you had to learn every aspect of the production. Lighting, sound, wardrobe, sewing, the works. You had to know how to pull the curtains, strike the set, thread the machine, and yes, hit your lines on cue. That kind of training isn't just for the stage. That's real-world leadership. Meghan said herself that it gave her the foundation to understand every piece of what it takes to run a team, and to respect each person's role within that team. That's the kind of leadership the corporate world could use more of. That's the kind of perspective that changes cultures. But of course, when Meghan says it, there are those who will roll their eyes. Because how dare a woman, and especially a black woman, speak with authority on leadership, creativity or business? Let me remind you, this is the same woman who walked into the royal family and immediately outshone generations of those born into it. Not because she was trying to, but because she could, because she knew who she was, because she brought experience, compassion and charisma into a space that had been running on hierarchy, ego and PR spin. And let's be honest, that was never going to sit well with people who benefit from the status quo. But I digress. Back to this beautiful episode. Meghan also mentioned how her training in wardrobe and sewing made her comfortable with a sewing machine, which beautifully tied in with Heather's journey in creating high-quality scrubs. That wasn't a staged moment, that was a natural connection. One creator recognizing another. One woman seeing the labour and love behind another woman's success. And then, in a moment of pure relatability, Heather admitted that she's a terrible cook. And what did Meghan do? She didn't pretend to be perfect or roll her eyes. She got real. She admitted that she doesn't always cook from scratch either. Sometimes it's just about plating some takeout and tossing together a salad. That moment, that was everything. That was Meghan reminding women, especially women who are constantly told to do it all, that it's okay to breathe. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to cut corners when you need to. I mean, think about how radical that message is in a culture that shames mothers for not cooking organic every night, for not being camera-ready at school drop-off, for daring to be tired, human, real. Meghan is out here modelling something powerful, the balance between aspiration and authenticity, and it's a balance we all need more of. Now, let's talk about the critics, because I can hear them already. Oh, the podcast isn't charting high. It's not in the top 5. Where's the buzz? And I'm here to tell you, buzz is not the measure of impact. Virality is not the measure of value. Sometimes the best work takes its time. Sometimes it finds its people slowly, intentionally, and that's okay. Meghan isn't chasing headlines anymore. She's chasing meaning. She's curating conversations that are layered, nuanced, and real. She's not packaging herself for mass consumption. She's not pretending to be someone she's not. And you know what? That's terrifying to people who are used to women, especially black women, performing just to survive. But Meghan doesn't have to perform. She has a platform, and she's using it wisely, so no, Confessions of a Female Founder might not be flooding your gossip blogs, and thank God for that. Because this podcast isn't for gossip junkies, it's for dreamers, builders, creators, women who know what it means to start something from nothing and still get up every day to try again. Meghan has always been ahead of her time. She saw the writing on the palace walls and refused to shrink herself. She left the castle but kept her crown, and now she's using it to lift others. So to everyone in the squad, let this be our reminder. Our Duchess is not done. She's just getting started, and she doesn't need the mainstream to validate her. She's out here building a movement, one voice, one story, one woman at a time. If this episode inspired you, if it reminded you of the quiet power we each hold, then I want you to do something simple but powerful. Take a second right now and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following this channel so you never miss a chance to stand up for truth, for dignity, and for Meghan. If this is an article, I want to use it to create a script for my channel, podcast, Royal Sussex Squad. I want to portray Harry and Meghan positively and slam anyone portraying them negatively. Make it at least a 12-minute video script. Encourage people to subscribe and donate via super thanks at the outro. Duchess Meghan. My theatre major at Northwestern prepared me to run a team. While I want the Duchess of Sussex to have unquestioning success at everything she undertakes, I understand why the conversations about her Confessions of a Female Founder podcast have quieted down. I'm not even following how COAF is charting week by week because I don't even think it matters. Like Meghan's association with Lemonada is not going anywhere. She will probably continue to do this COAF podcast and maybe other pods. I feel like Meghan is just trusting that COAF will find an audience. And maybe it will be a niche audience, but that's how it goes. But for my money, I'm much more engaged with what Meghan is doing with COAF than what she did with archetypes. The conversations with female founders are personal and professional, and I learned so much about everyone involved. This week's COAF pod is an interview with Heather Hasson, who founded FIGS, the medical scrubs company. This is a rare interview where Meghan didn't know an interview subject socially or have any history with the person. It was really great. Here's what People Mag thought was important. In an unexpected way, studying acting in college prepared Meghan Markle for her future as a founder. The Duchess of Sussex, 43, spoke about what she learned during her days at Northwestern University in a conversation with FIGS medical scrubs creator Heather Hasson on the latest episode of her podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder from Lemonada Media, released on May 13th. Meghan said, "I was a theatre major, and part of the programme was that you couldn't just do the acting. You had to do soup to nuts, every part of what a production would entail, which I actually think is incredible training for when you're running a team, because you appreciate what the sound person does and what the lighting person does. Wardrobe department and sewing were part of it too, so I am comfortable with a sewing machine," she added, bringing the discussion back to Hasson's introduction to her scrubs business. From People. I keep forgetting that Meghan majored in international relations and theatre. She would have been such a natural over there long term, but hey, they were mad because she was such a natural. Meghan and Heather also talk about cooking, and Heather says that she's a terrible cook, and she hopes to pick up some tips from With Love, Meghan. Meghan talked about how she doesn't cook everything fresh and from scratch every single day. Sometimes it's just putting takeout in a nice dish and maybe throwing together a salad. Give yourselves a break, ladies. And if you want to go one step further, if you believe in this work, in this voice, in this beautiful growing community, hit that super thanks button. Your support helps us keep going, keep speaking, and keep pushing back against the noise. Because we're not just here to talk, we're here to defend, we're here to uplift, and we're here to honour a woman who refused to let the world define her, and chose instead to define herself. This is Royal Sussex Squad, and we stand where the truth lives. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep your crown straight. We'll talk again soon.